I hate that abacus.
In Nightmare Hospital, Connie's mom confiscates Rosa's sword, so Connie and Steven have to break into the hospital to retrieve it, and Dr. Maheswaran ends up finding out about Connie's combat abilities. The pacing to this episode is really good. The momentum keeps along at a brisk rate, but each event still lasts long enough to be enjoyed, at least until the conclusion of the episode. More on that later. Events in the first half of the episode have just the right amount of amusing charm to them. Lion lickers also make a comeback. It actually took me a little while to recall what those even were. Apparently they're sort of like catnip to lions. Not sure if I want Steven getting lion high while he's on the job. The dialogue of Dr. Maheswaran, a last name I still struggle to pronounce correctly, is full of comedic and silly lines, and her eye-bulging facial expressions also make me chuckle. I only noticed in this episode that Dr. Maheswaran's voice resembled that of Motoko Kusanagi from the Ghost in the Shell standalone series. And what do you know, they're both voiced by Mary McGlynn. The Major, Togusa, and Bato are pretty much the three voice actors that make Ghost in the Shell standalone complex my favorite English dub in anime. And with a quick Google search, I found out that Connie's father is actually voiced by Crispin Freeman, who voiced Togusa. This is going to definitely be weirding me out in the future in episodes with Connie's parents now that I know who their voice actors are. So watching Steven and Connie interact is quite adorable. We all know that. The two make quite the silly duo with their hijinks. The silly mischief seems to amplify itself when the two find themselves together. Further cuteness in this ep is found when the two nearly instinctively hold hands, and of course Steven's yell of "Keep your hands off my Connie!" is sure to make fans squeal. The two are still in that naive, pre-puberty stage where they do not yet see each other in a romantic manner, but their feelings for each other and the importance the other holds in their life are abundant and should be immediately apparent to other characters around them. So, with my positive thoughts out of the way, it's time to buckle in for some criticism. It's a bit odd because I really want to like this episode, but I just can't. The resolution at the end was just too hard to swallow for me. But before that, I want to cover some other oddities involving Dr. Maheswaran. So what sort of patience does Dr. Maheswaran deal with exactly that makes her so calm about a multi-limbed monster that is missing a head? Citizens of Beach City have always seemed to nearly willfully ignore magical goings-on, and while that always bothered me, I was able to brush it aside for the most part. However, this monstrous amalgam of varying body parts has no head. How does a doctor think that a stethoscope is malfunctioning when this thing happens to have arms instead of a head, and heads are pretty goddamn important for humans as they tend to contain our brain goo? For this scene to make sense, I would have needed to see Lars get decapitated in a prior episode and then just continue doing his donut job as normal with people around him wishing him speed at regrowing his noggin. The existence of shard monsters in the history of gemkind on the planet should only give more reason for doctors to suspect these shard fusions are not human, not less. Dr. Maheswaran is freaked out by a lion at the end of this episode, but is fully confident in a monstrous amalgam that has 3 arms for a head just being an unreasonable patient? What? The inability of any doctors in this hospital to suspect the shard fusions aren't patients, that comes off as forced in so the rest of the plot can exist in the manner that it does. Yes, there's been some past behavior that was silly before in Steven Universe. Connie's parents were entertaining the notion that Alexandrite, a 30-foot-tall multi-limbed woman, was Steven's mom. As ridiculous as that seems, since we haven't seen any other 30-foot-tall humanoids interacting with the regular world, in the context presented, it just made me think, geez, this is some cartoon shit. This hospital taking in shard fusions as patients, though, that makes me think it was more poor writing than anything else. In a similar vein, Dr. Maheswaran asks if Connie's eyesight
just magically got better?
Have you not noticed that Steven is summoning a shield out of nothing and has currently encapsulated you in a giant pink protective bubble? This level of obliviousness is ridiculous, given what is accepted within the realms of normality. It's this cognitive dissonance that I sincerely hope is scrapped in future SU episodes because given all the things humans have seen in SU, their unwillingness to accept magical-based answers for the things around them just seems odd. Now that the residents of Beach City are really starting to integrate more with the going-ons of the Crystal Gems, I do hope this element doesn't appear in the future. But really, these issues don't hamper the episode's quality all that much. My problem with the episode is nearly entirely with its conclusion. Dr. Maheswaran's actions come off as so unbelievable and so out of character that it spoils the episode as a whole, especially since it feels like this conclusion is what the episode was designed to bring us to. To put it simply, no mother, not even the hippiest of free-spirited pursue anything hippie mothers, would allow their child to get involved with literally deadly combat against literal monsters. I would have a hard time buying this event as it was portrayed in the episode if Connie was 17 years old. However, she is around 12, maybe 13 at the oldest, I would have to guess. She still has the body of a child, has no magical powers, has been training with a sword for under a year, and her mother is reluctantly allowing her freedom to hang with Steven, which can cause and does lead to deadly combat. It's so gratuitously unrealistic for any mother, much less Connie's mother, to do that. The only logical and coherent ending to this episode is for us to enter a stay away from Steven mini-arc at that point. Look, I do not want us to get into a stay away from Steven mini-arc. That itself would be tropey and likely to be boring. And honestly, this episode seemed to have been constructed so we can quickly get past the generally boring trope of a child keeping their powers or abilities hidden from their parents. But with the way it was done, I would probably have rather it not been done at all and just have Connie keep it a secret until some big event in the future. Connie was a total badass this episode and showed off some magnificent experience with the sword, being able to split monsters wide open. But these are relatively slow, lumbering monsters with practically no comprehension of what is going on around them. Steven himself brings up that they have to be
ready if we have to fight Malachite or Peridot.
It's very different fighting intelligent, conscious beings dedicated on taking you out, and Connie's mom doesn't even bring up the conversation of what kind of danger Connie will be up against. I do expect future episodes to have Connie's parents essentially interrogating the Crystal Gems about Connie's activities and how the Crystal Gems are going to make sure Connie is safe. But still, the mere fact that Connie's mom is able to entertain this at all is just impossible for me to swallow. Dr. Maheswaran does a 180 in about the span of a minute, so we can have a moral lesson about how parents shouldn't make their kids fear potential repercussions to the extent that their children end up lying. If anything, I would rather have preferred the episode to end with Dr. Maheswaran undecided about the ordeal, and the next episode will be about Connie's parents visiting the Crystal Temple and discussing all the factors involved before granting Connie more freedom. So, this is the second time in a row that I think the SU crew is forcing conflict resolutions to resolve themselves in ways that don't feel natural. Hopefully this is just a rough bump in the road. I sort of hope the melodrama is held back for a little while, so next time we do have drama, it can really pack a wallop and feel important. Let me end my review by saying the ending scene to this episode was heartbreaking. Steven watching Connie hug her mom reminds him that he lacks his, so he clutches Rose's sword with a pained smile. It's the little gestures that are so powerful in Steven Universe, and this one is no exception.